AJ Green extended one of the cut downs and one more looms. We dig into the very latest next on today's Locked On Bucks.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Bucks. My name is Justin Garcia, joined as always by Camille Davis. We thank you for making this your first listen of the day, each and every day. You can hear me on the Bucks Radio Network, and you can find Camille weekly on the Locked On NBA show and the Technical Foul podcast as well. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if that bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. And as we get started, Camille, I think it's how do we say goodbye to what we had, to the good times that made us laugh, outweigh the bad. I thought we'd get to see forever, but forever's gone away. It's so hard to say goodbye to yesterday. Our guy is unofficially released in Chris Livingston. Although, this is well, I mean, we were by far the only ones that predicted this, but on the recent shows this week, we did say it kind of feels like Chris Livingston and Tyler Smith are going to be the odd men out here, and also nailed something else. Really, Frank did, but let's just start with the Chris Livingston news here. Not surprised to see it when you didn't play in either of the final two preseason games. We talked about the position battles. And I think one thing that really loomed too throughout preseason was who is going to be point of attack defender. Because, I talked last year about limiting your liabilities defensively. I think I said that over and over and over. They did a good job of that. They eliminated liabilities. I would go as far as saying this year. Do they have great individual defenders? I think that remains to be seen. If you have very good, they don't have great, like all defense level players. Giannis is it. But they don't have targets. So that's the important part to at least build your baseline for defense. But it does beg the question of who's going to take on those assignments. Who's going to be your point of attack defender? It was a stretch to say that's what Chris Livingston was fighting for. But the fact that you have a guy behind him, even with a non-guaranteed contract, that I think has shown can and will do that, was probably the final nail in the coffin.
Yeah, and it's tough. It's tough. And over the course of the summer, we've had conversations about who we thought might be the odd man out on the Bucks at the end of the roster here with the crunch that was coming. And it changed, throughout the season. I mean, once Andre Jackson Jr.'s contract was tweaked a little bit there where it was non-guaranteed up until the start of the season, it felt like, okay, the Bucks are increasing their flexibility of how they want to maneuver here with the roster. And at that point, it did not feel like Andre Jackson Jr.'s job was safe. You see Chris Livingston in the summer league, and he stood out on that Bucks summer league team, and he showed some things. And after being waived, he is re-signed after summer league. And it felt like, well, okay, if they re-sign him a second time, they're not going to waive him a second time, right? And you're watching how the preseason's unfolding there. You add Amir Coffey, you bring back the Nasses, the roster crunch gets even more and more tedious in that sense there. So training camp happens, preseason games happen. And as you mentioned, when we got to the last two, and you're not seeing Chris Livingston playing anymore, it's like, okay, I think the writing is on the wall here, which is also in part of why when predicting that other guy who is going to be the odd man out, seems like it's going to be Tyler Smith, especially with what Pete Nance has been doing on that two-way slot. So for Chris, it's been a question of what position do you play? We've seen the Bucks try him as a small ball 5 in summer league. We've seen them try him as a wing. We've seen him do all different types of things and even transform his body a bit this offseason to seemingly look like a guy that's going to be a wing defender. But it just seemed as if the Bucks liked what they saw a bit more with some other guys on the roster. And then even seeing what Andre Jackson Jr. has done so far in the offseason, albeit limited minutes here, still at the end of the rotation, so to speak. But we do know he has that NBA skill set of being able to defend at 6'6", 6'7". So it's a skill worth having, and they know Andre can do that at the very least.
Well, and Andre Jackson Jr., what he's done, I think, is just more of the same, right? That we saw from him last year. I get there may be a notion to say, well, I don't even know if I'd go that far because as we've seen, Andre Jackson Jr. has some very ardent defenders out there, and we're not quite there yet. But by all means, they can take a victory lap here because we all left him for dead. Like we many times through the summer and offseason assumed, you just mentioned it too, that he was going to be released because of that contract, a big part of it, and also you question like what's the role on the team. But I think all through summer league and camp in the preseason, he's been the same guy. And there may be this notion to say like, well, you got to show me a little something more. Fair, but like this is also a guy that has played in 130 games the last 2 years and started more than 50 of them, started 40 plus games last year. He was a starter until basically leading into the All-Star break. And then you lost faith in him. So if he's doing the same thing, he has at least shown you what number that is in the rotation or how much you can really lean on him is up, for debate, but he's at least shown you he's an NBA caliber player. And we have yet to see that from Chris Livingston or Tyler Smith.
Yeah. And that's just the reality of the situation right now, which is why I was a little disappointed. Like preseason, be on the outside looking in, you don't get to see some of the combinations of lineups that you might ideally want to see. But the coaching staff, of course, they have practices. They see these guys a lot more in depth than what we do. But I was really hoping to see Chris Livingston get an opportunity, at least with like a second unit, just to see what he looks like playing against some guys who are in NBA rotation a little bit more heavily than towards the end of the game with a bunch of guys that don't figure to be in the rotation. I was just curious to see what it looked like for him, especially coming into this season with him looking like he lost a little bit of weight here, how he was moving in summer league, some growth that we've seen in his game as well on the offensive end, but just wanted to see the test for him defensively. On the outside looking in, we didn't get to see that this preseason, but again, the coaching staff, they have a very, very long list of film and things they can look at themselves to make those decisions. But I'll be curious to see if Chris lands somewhere else too, like what the next landing spot for him might look like.
So there's one other thing I want to get to. We're making an assumption here, but with the second cut down here, but you brought it up. Let's say it does end up being Tyler Smith as the second one. So number one, Chris Livingston and Tyler Smith, would you rather have Pete Nance or one of those two guys in your two-way? Because they're both two-way eligible. We assume one of those is extremely safe. I would assume Mark Sears is safe too. So that would leave one potential two-way spot to do something with, even though you have Pete Nance under there. So between those three guys, who would you give the two-way spot to?
Probably Pete Nance at this point. I think when he's been in the game too, he's flashed. It's nothing like super spectacular with Pete Nance, like flashy. It's just all very solid. And he has a skill set as a big there that can stretch the floor. I know the last preseason game, it didn't like go down for him at the level that we saw earlier, but he's shown that he can knock down that three ball. He can play a little bit of defense. He can just do all the things. And I think that's pretty valuable. And he's only, I think, 25 himself still at this point. So still somewhat young, older, than Tyler Smith and Chris Livingston, but still a relatively young player. So I think I would go that Pete Nance route, especially knowing it's not really easy to find bigs that can really stretch the floor reliably. So having that, it's always a skill set you want to have in as much as you can.
Yeah, I would concur. I think the two ways remain untouched with Alex, Mark Sears, and then Pete Nance. But we'll see. We'll see too what happens with that second spot that needs to be, or that second player that needs to be released here to make room, as I'm sure we'll learn that any day or hour now here as we move closer and closer to the regular season. One other thing to touch on here with those final two spots, and then the big news of the day too, AJ Green coming to terms on an extension, something that we nearly nailed down to the dollar figure on our most recent show. So we'll get into those conversations coming up next on Locked On Bucks. Well, the holidays are going to be here before you know it, which is exciting. But getting your home ready for guests and celebrations can feel like a lot. Maybe your serveware needs a refresh, or the guest room could use some new bedding. Wayfair has everything you need to get your home holiday ready, from Christmas trees and wreaths to bedding, cookware, and outdoor inflatables. It's your one-stop shop for every room in the house. Wayfair makes it easy to personalize your home for the holidays with a huge selection for every style and budget, and with free and easy delivery, even on the big stuff. You can get everything you need without the hassle of huge delivery fees. Whether you're looking for some more decor for the holidays, Wayfair can help you transform your living room completely. Wreaths, throw pillows, all of it to instantly make that base feel warm and festive. It's easy to find the pieces that fit your style and your budget. Everything's easy to locate in one place, and checkout is a breeze. We mentioned the delivery is always fast and free, which this time of year is a lifesaver for all of us. So instead of stressing out about getting the house ready, you can actually enjoy the holidays with your friends and family. Get organized, refreshed, and ready for the holidays for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's wayfair.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. So if it is in fact Tyler Smith, who is the second release here to bring the roster down to the 15, it begs the question too of assets, young players that you're seeing walk out the door here, and it prompts the age-old discussion over the Bucks drafting success through the years. I've seen a few people too, and I think we've softly made this case. It's not completely excusable, but like, you do also have to use context with everything here and say, well, it's not like the Bucks are picking in the lottery; they're picking in these spots. So, yeah, it's not as easy to find those types of players. That being said, it's not impossible, and it's getting easier. We're seeing it happen more frequently, that those guys are developing. There are teams that are certainly much better at it than others. But, the Tyler Smith one, just based off what we've seen so far, and it's certainly not a large sample size, I haven't seen that growth. I haven't seen anything to make me feel confident and comfortable to say, like, this is a guy that is going to be an NBA player. Like, I've seen a handful of, like, skill sets, he's definitely going to latch on somewhere else. Maybe he will, because as you mentioned, the shooting ability, he's a big, he showed some rebounding ability. But, make no mistake about it, it's not like Tyler Smith has popped off the page in the moments that he's been out there. I think that the tough part isn't so much, if this happens, giving up on a very early, like a fake first round pick, a very early second round pick, this early into his career, 2 years. It's what could have been, right? And when you look at that draft, the next guy picked directly behind him was your guy, Tyler Kolek. Johnny Furphy has been a highlights machine for the Indiana Pacers.
Dunking on everybody.
So you got Johnny Furphy, who went 2 spots behind him. Bobby Klintman went number 37. AJ Mitchell would look pretty good in a Bucks uniform. That was number 38. Same with Jalen Wells, who started some games for the Memphis Grizzlies. And we talk about teams that do it better than others. Memphis is one of those teams. Like, these are a lot of names. Jalen Wells, Oso Iguodaro, even Adem Bona we saw start against the Bucks last year and showed some things. My guy Pella Larson. So there's a lot of names that are there in the second round this early, 2 years ago, that you've seen and you've looked at and said, yeah, I wouldn't mind having that guy. Like, that guy could definitely fill a role and develop for us. That's the tough part. Not so much giving up 2 years in.
Even Quentin Post, who was even later on in the second round,
very end of the draft.
Yeah. So like there were some guys there who showed in their rookie year the flash of impact. But even going back to just that 2024 draft, when the first round is AJ Johnson, and it was a little surprising, and then the next pick is Tyler Smith, and it's like, well, initial reaction was, if Tyler Smith was drafted in AJ Johnson's place and AJ Johnson was drafted in Tyler Smith's place, people probably looked at the draft a little bit higher. Now, both guys are gone. AJ Johnson, of course, along with Chris Middleton in the Kyle Kuzma trade, and now well, we shouldn't say now as we record this, nothing has happened yet, but we're assuming that Tyler Smith will be that other guy that is the odd man out on the roster here. And if that is the case, your 2024 draft class, a year, you got a year with them. And it's one of the critiques against the John Horst era of the Bucks and the Milwaukee Bucks in the Giannis era is just the drafting. And to your point, yes, drafting out the lottery is difficult. It's no guarantee there. It's harder to find those guys. But when you just look at the guys the Bucks have drafted, the record isn't strong. It's not strong.
Yeah.
And it's difficult, especially now as the NBA continues to evolve and we've been talking more and more about player development. It's so important to get these spots right, which is why it's at least a positive that the Bucks have found success with their two-way spots, with now Ryan Rollins and AJ Green both being guys in the rotation. So like the Bucks have been able
Alex
to
Antetokounmpo is going to join that list pretty soon.
Hey, listen, it would be a blessing if he was, because this has been a way that the Bucks have found young talent is through their two-way spots, more so than what they've been able to find in the draft. So if they could find success in two ways and the draft with the emphasis on player development, given the CBA and restrictive it can be to build teams with not so having the cheap contracts and guys who can produce on them are even more valuable, it would be nice to have. So if Tyler Smith is that last guy that's cut for the roster this year, man, just a sad goodbye to the 2024 Milwaukee Bucks draft class.
Well, and the two guys that I think are the most intriguing developmental pieces, where we've seen development in one of them more so than the other, but I think we both strongly believe in the other, were guys that you didn't even draft in Ryan Rollins, and AJ Green was undrafted. I mean, he went through your system, but Ryan Rollins went through two other systems before coming here. So like they are finding ways, they are getting better at accumulating young guys on this team. But yeah, that's the Achilles heel right now is like, it would be like with our personal finances, like needing to jump into Monarch money here. If it's like, well, I'm not investing money, but I'm paying my bills and I bought a lot of really cool stuff. But yeah, that investment piece for down the road isn't really there right now. That's kind of where the Bucks are at here. And, even the AJ Johnson pick, when you see, Terrence Shannon went a couple of picks after him. Ryan Dunn too. Like there's obviously shooting concerns, though he was much better shooting the ball than any of us anticipated his rookie year. That's a guy, point of attack defender that can fill multiple spots. So this one, more than previous drafts, has a very big potential to linger and say like, ugh, not only did you get nothing, if that is in fact the case, and we do have to lump in, there was, AJ a part of that Kyle Kuzma trade, which on the surface, it's easy to say this was a disaster, but you can't make the Jericho Sims trade because they threw cash in there and you were a second apron team. So it may be one of those things where you look and say like, man, we got nothing. And not only that, like this one more than other drafts, there were guys right there that could have immediately filled the role and helped you out.
And when I think about the midseason trade there, AJ Johnson felt like the draft pick that the Bucks couldn't trade. So it was
it was a first.
You know what I mean? Where it was like, well, here you go. But still, your 2024 draft class, like it is what it is at this point, and that's an area for the Bucks where if they're looking stuff like. Let me say this: scouting isn't an exact science. Like it's no way to be like, okay, we're not good at this, so we're gonna like do this one thing, and now we're instantly a better team at scouting and drafting. But the Bucks at this point have to reevaluate what they got going on, or something like that, because the current process just hasn't produced the crop of players that you would want to try to come out of these places. And again, in exact science, every draft isn't going to hit. Understand. But like, if you look back at Bucks draft picks and you're trying to think of like ones that hit, it's been quite a while. Like Dante DiVincenzo is one of the first ones that come to mind. And I mean, part of his growth happened once he left the Bucks, going to the Warriors, learning with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson to become the shooter that he is now. But it's an area for the Bucks that is going to have to improve. And looking at 2026 and what's coming up in that draft class right there, knowing they're going to have a pick, assuming they have a pick in that particular draft with that swap with New Orleans that Atlanta is part of now at this point, there are going to be some players in that draft. So it would be imperative for them to try to hit one in this upcoming one.
One question for you about last year's draft picks, and then we will get to the good news, and that is the extension that we have long wondered, when is it coming? It finally came today for AJ Green. We'll dig into the details coming up next on Locked On Bucks. Time to talk to you about our friends over at FanDuel. It's NFL season, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. All you got to do is pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you've unlocked $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel's easy to use. You get your payouts quicker than ever. It lets you build parlays, try out player props, even follow the live lines during games. Makes every game more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. So whether you're a casual fan who's diving into the numbers, or somebody that's just keeping tabs on your fantasy team, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. Download the FanDuel app today and have your way. Again, FanDuel.com. Download the app and get started today. So before we get to the AJ Green extension, again, we can't stress it enough. If it is, in fact, Tyler Smith that is released, although I think the context is certainly feeling like it's there, when we see Chris Livingston, the old fantasy move of cut, sign, cut,
Yes.
didn't play in the final 2 preseason games. Tyler Smith didn't play in the final 2 preseason games. You can kind of read between the lines with what Doc had to say. It seemed like a foregone conclusion Amir Coffey was going to make the team, and we saw Andre Jackson Jr. throughout the preseason. So I think that's where we're headed. If that does, in fact, happen, in the 2024 draft, what is going to be the one that the Bucks regret the most? Is it going to be, man, like all those names that we mentioned with Tyler Smith, that you could have had this guy at that spot? Or is it going to be that AJ Johnson develops into something with the Wizards?
Ooh, that's a good question. Because I made the joke too when the trade happened. I said when Chris Middleton was traded to Milwaukee, he was the throw-in of the trade and became like the best part of the trade. What if in this situation AJ Johnson becomes something like that? But he's gonna have a lot of competition in Washington. They have a lot of young players that are vying for playing time there. So it might not even be this stop for him, but we'll see how that shakes out for him. And then the Tyler Smith aspect of it, again, a lot of other guys behind him. I think the Tyler Smith one is more of the, if things play out the way we think that they will, with Tyler Smith being cut, I would say that draft pick was the more disappointing one, because the AJ Johnson selection was attached to the Chris Middleton contract in order to shed the contract and so on and so forth. So whoever was at that 24 was the quote unquote first round draft pick attached to Chris Middleton to shed the salary. That would have been gone no matter what in this hypothetical that we're speaking of. So I think the Tyler Smith piece of it is the one that's going to stand out when you look back at the 2024 Milwaukee Bucks draft.
I do too. I mean, you can't foresee this at the time, and it's well, although, like all the moves were kind of intertwined. So this isn't so much the like Luka Doncic revisited of like, well, you got Cooper Flag. Like, you didn't know that, and you couldn't predict that at the time. In this one, you could at least make more of a case in the sense that you brought in Kevin Porter Jr. Now, did you think Kevin Porter Jr. was going to play as well as he did for you last year? Maybe internally they did. I know certainly externally nobody did, and that move was met with a lot of eye rolls and even disdain. So in that sense, like, yes, you lost a young point guard. You brought back another young point guard in exchange. And, I think too, with AJ Johnson, the jury's still out. There's a lot we got to see. He's just 20 years old. But his numbers with the Bucks per 36 were much better than they were with the Wizards. Like, I know he scored more and he got to start some games for the Wizard, and he had a couple of high level or highlight reel, like that dunk on the baseline and a few other plays that really caught everyone's attention. Like, see, but we still got to see quite a bit, because he was very inefficient in the per 36 numbers a year ago. And it's not to say he can't get there. He's extremely raw, but let's wait and see. To your point, though, he's all of a sudden in a spot where man, there's a lot of guys now. And I know they're not the same position, but you got AJ and Trey J with Trey Johnson there, who's picking up a bulk of the attention. And certainly feels like the offense is going to start to run through him. So that may even hamper the growth of AJ Johnson, but it's going to be interesting to monitor. And I think Bucks will always side eye and see, well, what's AJ Johnson doing with the Wizards here? Let's keep an eye on those numbers. And could you imagine too, Chris Middleton and AJ Johnson both start the game opening night and both have huge games.
The revenge, people all focus on Chris Middleton, and AJ Johnson comes in like, I want my revenge too. But he's been dealing with some health issues too, so we'll see if he's actually available for the opener. But one last thought on this before we move on to AJ Green. Yeah. I think too, part of the appeal of AJ Johnson was that he was such an athletic guard.
And well, I mean, he would have fit in nicely with this group because he was athletic, he was quick, he was, it was nothing we had seen.
And I think that was part of why Bucks fans were so like, oh, we have to keep this kid because we had nothing like that on the roster. Yeah. And they're trying to put some more youth and athleticism in the roster now. So, but yeah, he would definitely fit into this current style of ball. So a thought I had about part of why he was so beloved.
Are they playing Trey Johnson at point guard?
I've seen him moved around a little bit. I've seen him at both guard spots, but I'm not sure.
So, I mean, either way, like you've got Trey Johnson, you've got Bub Carrington, you've just brought in Cam Whitmore, who's a 2-guard, but like it's all of a sudden a crowded young backcourt there in DC. All right, enough of the non-Bucks names here. AJ Green, the extension finally came. We wondered all through the summer, hey, where's this at? Like, why haven't we heard any updates? I know that question started to come up more and more in the last couple weeks that we heard John Horst ask those questions too of like, what's the status with the AJ Green extension? And now we see it on our over under show. If you haven't listened to that one yet from yesterday, Frank came up with a number of let's set the over under at 11. Did we pick 11 or 11 and a half?
11 on the dot.
11 million per year. Now, I think the base year is going to be like 10 million with the 8% raises that you get. So it sounds like the first year is going to be just under, but this was 4 years, 45 million. So more than what we saw from Sam Merrill.
Yeah, about 11.25 on average there. If you do it, just by the years, but so technically us going over, we hit on our over for that particular prediction, but I'm happy to see it for
a
AJ.
Couple of those years. Yeah.
Yes. For a couple of those years, but I'm happy to see it for AJ. We've been talking about it all summer, as you mentioned, a crucial part of what they were looking to do. And when we were talking about what he might command in this market, I mentioned Sam Merrill of like, well, Merrill got 38. And I was like, and AJ is going to be starting coming into a role. He plays a bit better defense. So I expected to be more than what Merrill got. And it was a bit more, but it's just like one of those stories. An undrafted dude comes in, two-way slot, gets that first contract. I think the first contract was like $6 million itself, a little bit over $6 million over those 3 years there. And he played himself into a position now where he's getting 45 mil in his next contract here. To see a guy go from undrafted to this, where he has an opportunity to make even more people understand who he is this upcoming season, and truly an opportunity, I think, for this in a couple of years to be one of those contracts that everybody is like, what a bargain. So shout out to AJ Green, shout out to the Bucks for getting it done before the season starts too. It's just, it feels good to know that AJ's locked in until the 2029 season, 2030 season at this point. Yeah. So love that. Love everything about that.
Yeah. And, I mean, we mentioned one of those names, like I think we even mentioned it on the show yesterday of Sam Merrill. Here's what he got with the Cavs. That was 38 million
38
for you, I think. So Sam Merrill's making 9 million per year, basically. I mean, you just look around at some of the other 2 guards in the league and like what you realistically expect to get from them. This is an extremely value contract that the Bucks are getting. I mentioned he's maybe a little older than you would think at 26 years old, but he's got that elite skill set in shooting. And, I think we would all agree he's a plus, not all of us in the chat, but me, Frank, and others, he's a plus defender. He's gotten stronger this year too, that I think it is going to be interesting to watch how the whistle is doled out early in the season, because He's going to be the guy, defend or opposing players go and attack.
Yep.
But we saw him add some bulk, and he's held up with that through preseason. Any strides or growth that he makes, and I don't think he has to make much defensively, just makes this even more of an incredible value for the Bucks to be averaging about $11 million for the next 4 years to get a guy that's a lethal shooter, still in his mid-20s. And, again, here's the other important part of this deal, which, to be clear, none of us are advocating for. But if things go south, it gives you a type of deal that you can move for something in return.
Yeah, you could. Like I said, I think this is going to be one of those contracts where we look back and it's just in 2 years, like what a bargain that this is, and a contract that teams would be very, very glad to take on. Now, that's one thing you think about just when building out your roster, putting the contracts together. You want to make sure you have movable pieces, but the on-court fit of AJ Green next to Giannis has been so beautiful. He's someone like this upcoming season too, where it's like the inverted pick and roll, the Pat Connaughton special with Giannis, like
He's a
AJ Green.
great screener too.
Yes, for his size, he's so good at that, and that's an action that I cannot wait to see them run spam points this season. So, like, he's just such a valuable player on the court too. You mentioned the defense, and that's the area of his game where, like, the contract's getting compared to like Duncan Robinson and other shooters, where it's like I get why, because of the shot profile of an AJ Green, where most of those shots are 3-pointers. Like, I forget how many weeks it took last season for him to take anything besides a three. Like, that's what he does. But the thing is, I think that Heat fans before Duncan was traded would have rather have had an AJ Green level of defense from a Duncan Robinson. So that's the thing with AJ Green for me, where it's like the shooting is real. It's elite. It's a 41% 3-point shooter, I believe he is. So you have that in a guy too who's not a negative defensively. Yeah. That's a win.
I think he and Gary Trent Jr., we talk about the top 100 for the league as a whole. If we, not 100, but if we did a positional ranking, I think he and Gary Trent Jr. would clock in pretty close to one another. Like, maybe in the mid to late 20s for your guards of where I would probably place those guys, 2 guards out there. But the value of a contract, I mean, you look at guys pretty similar that have come up in the past, and I know it's a different landscape with the aprons, but like guys like Kevin Huerter and the deals that they were getting, I mean, Gary Trent Jr. is on a league minimum, and AJ Green is on the rookie scale deal, but now he's going to be bumping up to about $11 million. And like, this is a type of player that before the last 2 off seasons is, probably starting at like $18-19 million.
Yeah, it's crazy how that's changed, right? Where you're looking at the landscape and thinking about what that might have gone for prior to the Gary Trent point. I know there are going to be some people who probably point to the AJ Green number and they're all like, "Oh my goodness, like how might Gary Trent?" Like, listen, the Bucks are going to have his bird rights right after this upcoming
spot. Yeah.
Yeah, so they can make things real right with Gary Trent after this season if he chooses to continue to be in Milwaukee. And plus, this is also AJ Green's first like big contract. Gary's gotten his first big contract already when he was with the Raptors, and I think he was getting like on average 17 M's a year. Not to count nobody pockets, but just to say that he's not, necessarily new to the sense of like getting the first big contract. So shout out to AJ Green for that. And if the season goes according to plan, I can see Gary Trent getting himself a bag himself next offseason too.
Gary Trent's in a good spot. You mentioned the bird rights that the Bucks have. So like, if you can keep the group together and if you find success this year, and if the big fella's like, hey, it was much ado about nothing, I like what I saw here, we make another move. I mean, we'll get into it throughout the course of the season, but I do think it's important to point out this is the group right now. Full stop. Right now, I'm not confident this is the group at the end of the year. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, oh, things could go south. Like, let's see. Because every time John Horst has been put in this spot, he's done something. And I don't think it was just waving and stretching Dame and bringing in Miles Turner. Like, obviously this summer, you got to answer a big question first. But you're going to have 3 draft picks open to you to move. You're going to have a $20 million expiring deal. You're going to have other contracts. Again, we're not saying trade AJ Green, but like this one, that become tradable where you can cobble those together and bring in a high ticket item, attaching some of those draft picks that I think they're far from done here.
Mhm.
So Gary Trent's in a good spot because he can get paid from the Bucks or anyone else this summer. And I mean, I'm sure he has no complaints other than let's hope I stay healthy, because if things go south here, he's not tied down in Milwaukee and can jump somewhere else. But certainly good news for the Bucks. Great
For
news
sure.
for AJ Green as well. And I think we've just reached the point where we're ready for the season to start. Like, let's get the official word on who the 16th guy is and who's the odd man out. But we're ready to see the Wizards come to town in this season to tip off.
Absolutely, and absolutely. And for our Monday show this upcoming week, we will be doing a quick little look around too of the first week's opponents for the Bucks. So talking with the Locked On Wizards, talking with Locked On Raptors, talking with Locked On Cavs. And let me tell you something about Sean Woodley and them Raptors. He feels very highly about them. He has been already saying the Raptors will be better than the Bucks this year. So that's a little network rivalry now that I'm into.
Well, I mean, one of those teams between like the Bucks, the Pistons, the Raptors, to a lesser extent, the Heat, right? Like there's going to be one of those teams that's like, man, we're fighting for the 7 seed right now. So it's going to be an interesting season. So we'll have that on Monday. I think we're going to have something pretty nice, pretty special on Wednesday. Tuesday, we will start to take a look towards the matchup with the Wizards and preview this season even more if it warrants, and if there is a notable release that isn't what we anticipated, we may have something this weekend as well. As we might be pumping out some more episodes than just the 5 a week. There may be more. I think we're looking at doing a post game of sorts for every single game, so you might start to see some more weekend shows popping up in your feed as well. But it's almost here. We're less than a week away for the Bucks, and even fewer days for the season as a whole to get tipped off. I had to go back and double check and make sure, like, I did sign up. I have the reoccurring payments, right? Like I'm signed up for League Pass and get all that stuff situated. By the time you guys check out this episode, we'll already know what happens, but we'll see if we're fighting for more attention within the city here, and if the Brewers can come from behind here and start to piece together a series. Let's hope so. But yeah, I think now we just wait and see who's the last guy, who's the last one out here for this team.
Yeah, just got to keep an eye on that at this point. And then, like you said, it's time for some real ball, some basketball that counts in the standings, that leads to the playoffs. And this is the season, as we mentioned, I'm super excited for. Like, we're going into our 3rd season hosting this show, Justin. This is our 3rd season. Hopefully the 3rd time's a charm when it comes to this team in the playoffs.
What does that mean?
Oh, yeah. We're going to see. We're going to see 3rd time's a charm. 3rd season the charm. This is the one.
I wasn't sure where you were headed. Hopefully 3rd time's a charm here. Yeah, it's this, and this one is different than any. Like, we had the luck of what Kane's last show was the home open, the season opener against the Sixers 2 years ago. Like, we came in a week after the Bucks had acquired Damian Lillard, basically. So it's, here you go, no problem. But we've seen quite a bit of change over these 2+ years, and this one especially is I don't know, like one of the more anticipated seasons I can remember, even with like the Dame years, because I think everybody knows it's going to be different and they're ready for different.
Yeah, I know I am. I'm ready to see this. Like every team this offseason, like the media day bingo has been play faster, play with pace, more threes. Like that's the bingo. Like I want to see the Bucks put that in actual execution. What does that look like? So yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready.
So we'll see who the last release is, but a lot to get to coming up next week on the show. That'll do it for today's show. For Camille, I'm Justin. We'll talk with you guys once again next week on Locked On Bucks.